Hello my randoms, it is Amanda. Welcome to my channel, Amanda Random. If you guys are new here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button because I post 2 to 3 plus videos every week, and hit the like button because it really helps the channel and it helps me to know that you guys like what I'm doing.
So let's get this whole thing rolling, I guess is what I'll say.
If you're new, I live in Wisconsin. I'm currently sitting in my vehicle, as you can see, waiting for it to warm up. So if you can hear the vents, I'm sorry, I apologize, but I have to have some heat going in here. And I have been in contact with a bunch of you amazing randoms through my Instagram. If you guys want to know what that is, I will put that right up on the screen here. It's MANDYKAY1082, and that is my Instagram. And I've been talking to so many of you guys through Instagram chat and things like that, and I've had so many of you guys ask me if I would do some story times on my channel. And I sat here and I was like, what would I talk about?
And I was telling this to one of my friends, and I was like, one of the only friends that knows I actually do YouTube. And
she was like, what do you mean you have so many stories to talk about? She's like, you have so many interesting stories that you tell. And I was like, well, I guess I'll give it a go. I'll give it a try. So while we're sitting here, I thought, what better time than to jump on and tell you guys a little story. So welcome to my first ever
story time.
Cringy AF. Alright, so honestly, I could go back how far and tell you about one of my stories from Lord knows when, because the more I sat and thought about it, the more I realized I really do have quite a bit of stories. Who doesn't though, right? Right. So anyway, I decided instead of telling you guys a story about something that happened a long time ago, I want to tell you a story about something that just happened really recently to me. I've been suffering and dealing with anxiety and depression for quite a while now, and unfortunately that goes hand in hand with being a type 1 diabetic. But I guess I just want to throw that in there. And the other night I was really having a rough night, and my youngest, my daughter Jasmine, had stayed at her grandma's house. And a little backstory for you guys: my mom and my aunt still live in the same exact house that their mother had when we were all growing up. So me and my cousins and I all grew up in this household with my grandma and my aunt and my other aunts. It was like we were just one big, huge, crazy, way overly united family. Like way overly united. We are always up each other's butts, literally. Okay, not freaking literally, okay? I've never been in any one of my relatives' butts before. Okay, moving on. I digress. Anyway, this house has been in our family for a long time, and growing up, I was there with all of my cousins and everything. So when I was a little girl and I would stay at my grandma's house, I literally would stay in this house. I would remember my mom being like, Mandy, you're not staying. There's no reason for you to stay tonight. And even though I hadn't even asked my grandma yet, she would look at my mom and be like, why can't she stay here? I already told her yes. And then she would give me this look like, you owe me, kid, you owe me. And I had such an amazing relationship with my grandma. Now, if you would ask a lot of my mom and her sisters and brothers, if you would ask them if she was a real loving, caring person, she's a very caring person, but back in those days, I guess it was a little different. I remember my mom and my aunt being like, she wasn't the kind of mom that would constantly tell you, oh, I love you, and you know, she was there for them. She did everything she could for them. She was a loving mother. She just wasn't I guess, maybe real verbal about it sometimes, like a lot of us are this day and age, especially in my weird little relationship of family. But they have a completely different, I guess, viewpoint to some degree. Now, don't get me wrong. They loved their mother. I mean, I think the hardest time in my life that I've ever seen my mom personally go through was losing her mom. Because that was one of the hardest times I remember as a kid, was losing my grandma. So this woman meant a lot of things to a lot of people. And she had a really big heart, and especially when it came to her wonderful grandchildren. Okay, so now that you got all of this information, I feel so bad that you guys are probably like, story times suck. Get to the point. If you're going to watch my story times...
Disclaimer, I do not get to the point fast whatsoever. I take my time and I tell my story.
Alright, so, the other night, I was having a rough night, like I said, and my daughter had stayed over at my mom's house now, and my mom's room is my grandma's room, so, literally, I would sleep in that room with my grandma when I would stay there, and Jasmine sleeps in that room now with her grandma when she stays there. And I've had different things happen in relation to this story, but I guess I'm going to just stick with this one. So I was having a rough night, and I was crying, and, you know, I was just kind of having just this little mental breakdown because of my blood sugars being up and down, just because of so much stuff that had been going on. And I finally remember falling asleep, and I think it was like probably 3 o'clock in the morning. So I fell asleep, and the next thing I know, I had woke up, and like trying to open my eyes was ridiculous. It felt like my eyes were so puffy, and I just had this headache. Like one of those headaches, like, now I had cried before I fell asleep, but it wasn't one of those cries where you're like puffy and your head hurts for 3 days straight because you cried like a little sissy for 4 hours. It wasn't like that. But when I woke up, it had felt like that. Like my face was puffy. I felt like, my face was wet. I was crying. Like, what the heck is going on here? So, long story short, it's not going to be short. I was laying there just trying to figure out what happened, like, what is going on? And my head was pounding, and I was just like, seriously, I can't handle this. I cannot handle this. So I just laid there for a while, and I remember closing my eyes, and all of a sudden, it was just like a motion picture. Like you had just put on a movie on a TV, and it just started flashing through my mind. And I went right back into this dream that I was having. And as soon as I started thinking about it and seeing like this in my head, this is so crazy to try to explain, but I was like, oh my God, I remember what I was dreaming about. And then like while I was remembering that I remembered, need a new vocabulary word here. I was just sitting there like, wow, like I was recalling the whole dream, and I started bawling again. And it was so crazy, I guess. I guess basically I'll tell you that in my dream, I was me, who I am right now here today. Dreams are so hard to explain. But I was at my grandma's house, which is now my mom's house. But I was a little girl. Like, how do I explain this? I was me watching this. So just like it was me watching a movie again as who I am now, but I was looking, like standing in the doorway, looking into the bedroom, and I see me as a child, and I'm wearing this nightgown that, you guys, I had this nightgown as a kid. It is not a nightgown I have ever thought about, I have ever remembered, but I was wearing this nightgown in my dream, and I seriously had this as a child. I wore that nightgown before at my grandma's. So it was just this long sleeve nightgown with like a little ruffle on the end, and it had a mama bear and a baby bear on it, and they were like just holding hands, and I can't remember what it said, but the bear picture was there in my dream, everything to the little ruffle at the bottom of this freaking pair of pajamas. And I'm just standing there like watching this, and I'm in my pajamas as a little girl, and I'm looking at my grandma, and I was like, thank you for letting me stay. And I was like jumping into bed, and she's like, all right, it's late now, so you need to get to sleep. But a little tradition that I had when I would stay at my grandma's was she was part of a Lutheran religion. So she had this little St. Peter and Paul book, and it wasn't a Bible, but it was a book that it was like a kid's book, a kid's Bible book, I guess. And it had like poems in it. It had pictures in it, little stories in it. And I loved this book. I loved the poetry in the book. And the pictures, of course. What kid doesn't? And the main thing I loved about this book was that I would lay in bed with my grandma, and she'd reach over to the nightstand. Mind you, the same nightstand that's still in this bedroom to this day. And she would pull this book out, and we would read this book together, and we would laugh, and we would just make silly jokes. And it was like my time, you know? So in my dream, I'm watching me staying overnight at my grandma's house and laying in bed, reading this book that we always read, and then her telling me, because even though my mom and them say she never really said I love you verbally much or things like that, my grandma told me all the time. She told my brother, she told my cousins, all of us grandkids growing up. I don't know how much she told the other ones, but I know she told me all the time. But we're laying in there in bed, and we're laughing, and I can see my grandma's face so vividly. I can see her hands. I can see every age mark, every freckle, every wrinkle. I can see it so clearly in this dream. And I'm seeing me with my grandma, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like overload, sensory overload. I haven't looked into my grandma's eyes in a long time. Girly moment. Okay, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not a girly girl. So anyway, basically what I'm trying to say is this dream was so vivid and so raw and so real, even though I was standing there watching myself with my grandma. So at this point, I remember looking at me and then staring at my grandma in this dream and seeing her, how she looked at the little me. And the next thing I know, Jasmine is in the bed, and I'm still watching this, but it's Jasmine in my nightgown, which I don't have anymore, and I literally have not thought about this nightgown, you guys. I don't even know. I don't even, if you asked me about it, I wouldn't have even really remembered it until I seen it in this dream. And then I even went as far as telling my mom and my aunt about this dream and about my pajamas, and my aunt's like, oh, you had those, you wore those all the time. I remember those. They had the ruffle, they were light purple with the bears, and I was sitting there like, okay, I know I didn't make this up in my head, like, so anyway, it kind of just went from me seeing me and my grandma to seeing my daughter Jasmine in my pajamas, and she was laying in bed looking at my mom, and I saw how my mom was looking at Jasmine the same exact way that my grandma would look at me, and I was just like, this is too much, you know, like, this is crazy. And I remember in the dream going, I want to wake up. And I don't know why I wanted to wake up, but I think it was because I didn't want to feel that. I didn't want to feel those emotions. I didn't want to think about that, but I was kind of forced to in this dream, and it was just like, there's my grandma. This is the grandma that I go to. If you guys watch my vlogs, I always go up to the cemetery, and I eat lunch up there sometimes. I sit up there. I read books up there. I go up there just specifically to talk to them. Yeah, I know, they're past. They're gone. But it makes me feel better. I go there and I think they can hear me. I know she can hear me when I'm sitting here. So anyway, I'm watching this happen now, and I'm like, I really want to wake up. This is rough. And all of a sudden in my dream, it's not Jasmine and my mom anymore, and it's back to me and my grandma laying in the bed. But my grandma looks away from me as a child, and she turns and she looks at me standing in the doorway. And she's like, okay. She stopped and she turned, and like we made eye contact, and she looked right at me, and she was like, just because you can't see me like this anymore doesn't mean that I'm not always here. So, after that happened, she said, I love you. And I woke up. And I must have been like bawling in my sleep through this whole dream. And the reason I decided, I guess, to tell you guys this particular story is because I want to know in the comments below if you feel like sharing. If you don't feel like you have to. But I want to know if you guys have experienced any kind of dreams like this with loved ones that have passed. And to make this story that much more just impactful, I guess, after I was laying there bawling, remembering all of this that happened in my dream, and then what my grandma said to me, I was like, okay. So I reached over and I grabbed my phone, and I had clicked onto Facebook, and you know when your feed shows up, the first thing I see, and I'm going to put a picture in here, is this little saying. And then I broke down, you guys, and started bawling even more. Because I was like, I believe in heaven. I believe in God, and I don't push my beliefs on anyone. I am not a holy roller that goes to church every Sunday. No, I'm not proud that I don't go, but I also don't believe that you have to be in God's house to talk to God. I don't believe you have to put money in a collection plate for God to hear you and for God to know that you have your own connection and relationship with Him. So, I am a horrible sinner. I know this. I ask for forgiveness all the time. I ask for other people's forgiveness every day. And I'm just sitting there, and then after seeing that right there, I can't remember exactly what it said, but like I said, I put a picture of it in here. I just feel like it was my grandma. It was my grandma talking to me, because there has been a couple other times that things like this have happened with loved ones that I've lost coming to me basically in dreams. So this might be a touchy topic for some of you, and like I said, I am not a hater to anyone. If you don't believe in God, that is your right. If you don't believe in, I don't care. Your beliefs are your beliefs, and you are entitled to them. And I would hope that you guys would respect the fact that I'm entitled to my own. But I seriously just felt so strongly that my grandma was here telling me that, you know, I can't be here right now, telling you that everything is going to be okay, and reading our book and laughing, but I am here. I'm here in so many different ways, and you guys, I'm like, I'm not going to cry. I'm going to tell this story, and I'm not going to cry. I am not good expressing emotion because I feel like I am a grown woman and I'm a mom, I am a wife, I am so many things to so many people that I don't feel like I should be a crybaby. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I always feel horrible like when I cry, like, come on, this isn't you, suck it up. But, whoa, I almost dropped you. So, you guys, I guess I just wanted to share that. Leave me some comments below if you think it was really my grandma talking to me. Let me know if you've had any similar experiences, and if you don't feel comfortable leaving them in the comment section below, you guys, you can always write me on Snapchat. My Snapchat and my Instagram are always linked below every video for my contact and social media info, and I even have my email, so if you want, all of that will be in the description box under this video. Like I said, if you don't feel comfortable sharing it, but I would love to read it if you guys feel comfortable enough to share anything with me. Am I like crybaby boogering it up in here? So I don't know how this story time technically really just went, but I feel like I couldn't be any more honest or true about it because that's just who I am. That's my family. And I wanted to share it with you guys because it meant actually a lot to me. And in my personal opinion, I believe that that was my grandma letting me know that she's still here. She's still here. She's watching over all of us. And if she could, I know she would have wrapped her arms around me and given me a big hug. And just knowing that makes me feel better. Do you know what I mean? When you haven't seen someone for so long, it's different. You look at pictures, that's one thing. I have 1,000 pictures of my grandma. I'll put one over here right now that I have on my fridge because I look at her every day. She's holding me and my brother. Ugh, grammar alert. She's holding my brother and I. And it's so different when you look at these people in pictures or how you remember them so vividly in your mind, but then you go to actually seeing them as a person so vividly in a dream, and it just, I'm kind of mad when I think about the whole situation of why did I want to wake up? Now that I think about it, I don't want to wake up anymore. I don't care how much it hurt me in that moment to experiencing those feelings of loss. I wish I would have stayed in that moment. I wish I could have sat there and talked to my grandma. So, I feel like this has probably been a way longer than a story time than it should have been. I don't know the rules of story times, but I just wanted to share that. Like I said, if you guys want, leave me some comments. Give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and if you want me to do these story times some more, in the comments below, also leave me some ideas of story times, like, you know, a funny story about your kid, or when you got your tongue pierced. I don't know. What was your first tattoo and how was it? Like, just anything kind of random ideas that you guys have. That way I can kind of write them down in a notebook and I'll have them on hand. So if I am sitting here waiting for my car to warm up in the middle of Wisconsin winters and I get the urge to come on and talk to you guys, I'll have some ideas of different things that I can tell you possible stories about. So, you know you're going to hear it here. Stay random, you guys. And I hope all of you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week. And know that I am always thinking of you and that I am always so amazed by all of your support and love that you guys share to me and my family. And that's why I'm here. That's why I share. Because there's so many of you now that have personally touched my heart and have become members of my random family, that this is such an outlet for me to talk to you, to read your comments, and okay, I get the point. Zip it, girl, zip it. I digress. All right, you guys, stay random. I love you lots. Please be kind in the comments below. Bye, guys.